Hey, it's Roy Newgate, and today we're finally back reviewing a One Piece chapter. And it's been ages since I've done one of these. I think it's probably been like 3 months or something like that. But for the sake of consistency, I thought I'd put one out for this chapter, especially because I have a lot of thoughts to share on this one. But before we get into the details, if this is your first time here, or you just generally enjoy One Piece content, make sure to hit the subscribe button for more videos like this one. And hit the like button as well because that helps a lot too. First thing you notice with this chapter is the cover, and it looks like it was a request, but you see Frankie and Senor Pink in the bar, and Frankie is in tears along with the bartender. So you can kind of imagine that this is depicting Frankie fulfilling his promise to Senor Pink about one day getting drinks with him, as he tells him about the woman Russian. And it looks like a really emotional moment, and this is probably something a lot of us want to see in an actual story, if Oda can ever fit it in one day. But in any case, it was nice to get a visual for this at the very least. As we get into the actual chapter itself, we see the fight between Black Maria and Robin is continued on the first page, and Black Maria points out that the giant form is taking a toll on Robin, which makes a lot of sense because she's never really been in this sort of situation where she has to continuously fight with this form of herself. So the stamina drain is pretty massive. Robin is used to just clutching onto her opponents and being able to defeat them pretty quickly, but Maria is versatile and resourceful enough here to be able to break free from her hold, and even is able to land an attack with her poison tipped stingers. And this just makes matters worse for Robin because she's already dealing with the fatigue of this form that she's not used to, so things are getting pretty desperate for her. Maria points out that she doesn't need to hold back because Robin is a woman too. So you have to wonder if this was sort of a veiled shot at Sanji because she's been taking a lot at him in the last few chapters. And pretty much using her opinion of him to kind of attack the crew as a whole. And she keeps taunting Robin right after she sets the whole side of the room on fire and doesn't really give Robin a chance to escape. And even points out that Brook can't swoop in and save her again with his ice abilities. But Brook, instead of running to her aid, shows us that he has a lot of confidence in Robin. He doesn't even bother shifting his focus, and instead he pretty much just makes it seem like Black Maria is the one that needs to run at this point. And I think this is pretty important for Robin because knowing her crew believes in her and trusts her ability will fuel her to perform well. But Maria just keeps going and even calling her deadweight with no material use for anything other than her mind. It's at this point we segue into a flashback with the revolutionaries, specifically Koala, Sabo, and Hack. And it's been in our minds a lot that Robin should have already learned armament hockey at this point because of the powerful people she spent the last 2 years with. So it's been weird that she hasn't advanced to this level of combat, especially with her history of needing to constantly protect herself ever since she was a child. But we begin to get a better idea and a closer look at things. In this conversation, the Revs point out that at some point they'll no longer be with Robin and can't protect her, so she should learn some techniques that will help her to be more formidable in the future. Hack thinks she's strong enough with her clutching ability as it is, but we just saw in the page before that it won't always work that way, as Maria countered her and put her in a corner. Sabo and Koala were pretty eager to share Fishman karate techniques in Dragon Claw, and she wasn't exactly dying to learn them, but she seems kind of grateful that they care so much for her, so she happily agrees to take in the lessons, and you can see how excited this has him as well. As we transition back into the fight, Robin uses a giant palm with a new Fishman karate based technique, and she hits the roof and makes it collapse to put out the fire around her. And this is the point where the momentum starts to quickly shift in the other direction, and in Robin's favor. After things start to settle, we see Robin unveils a completely new form. She has fangs, horns, and wings, and looks like a demon, and Maria even points it out with a look of terror on her face. Robin also has this malicious look on her face and says, she'll be a devil if that's what it takes. And at some point, this sort of connotation probably brought her a lot of shame and grief, as everyone around her called her a demon child and cast her away while she was trying to find a place where she belonged when she was younger. But now at this point, she's completely embraced it. She emphasizes she'll do what she has to for the sake of helping those that rely on her. One thing I want to point out is the nature of this form, because it doesn't really reflect what we've seen from Robin's previous forms and abilities at all. We've never seen her grow fangs or wings that look like this, and it looks like the wings in her arms are sort of darkened, which is completely new as well. Reading the spoilers for this chapter, it was kind of described as armament hockey by some people, and even as the chapter came out, I see people saying she's using some sort of full body armament, and at first I thought it could have been the case, but looking closer, it doesn't really seem like that's what's going on. One conclusion I've seen drawn is that through learning Dragon Claw from Sabo, she could have learned to apply armament to herself. But after discussing it with a few people, it seems that Dragon Claw is more of a martial arts technique that Sabo happens to apply armament hockey on top of. I'm not sure of the accuracy of this, but it does make a lot of sense. And Robin's hand is not completely blacked out either, so this definitely brings out more doubt to the idea that she used armament hockey. Though she may have definitely borrowed some principles from what she was learning to put this form together. Another side I'm seeing is, why did she wait until now to show us this? But that's pretty easy to explain because she was never really pushed this much in the post time skip, so there was never really a need to exert herself this much. She was able to handle all of her other fights with her basic abilities, even in Dressrosa when she was able to stop Hakuba, and he was wreaking a lot of havoc before she stepped in. And if the giant form from earlier was consuming so much stamina, it's easy to imagine the toll that this one is taking as well, and it's likely to be an even greater detriment to her fighting ability. Earlier in the fight, Maria pointed out that Robin having limbs is meaningless since all they need her for is her mind, and Robin sarcastically turns this right back at her as she grabs a hold of her limbs and clutches her and snaps her to the point that she has blood coming out of her mouth. So the form ends up proving to be very effective despite the strain on her since she was able to make quick work of Black Maria like she claimed she would. And it was really great to see this, honestly. It's been so many years since Robin had the chance to really show out like this, and kind of make it clear that she's not just a person that can read poneglyphs. The gifters heard Black Maria screaming after Robin finished her off, and they all rushed to the area to see what happened, and that's where we see her just laid out on the floor with her eyes widened out as they look on in complete shock. They see Robin staring back at them in this new demon form of hers, and Brook takes full advantage of this moment and finishes off the rest of them with a new attack. And he was really great this chapter too. I don't see too many people talking about him, but he really played his support role to perfection. Another thing I'm wondering about though is what's left for them with the remainder of the raid. Like, Brook is more up in the air because he's completely fine and hasn't really done too much. But you see all the damage Robin has taken, and she's even been hit with some poison, so you wonder if she's going to take some rest or have Chopper treat her and, have some others try to protect her. Because as we all know, she's still a person that a lot of the people on the island have their eyes on. And that whole part of the plot is likely to still be a major focus later on. Especially because we see that there's a Mary currently watching them, so they're definitely not out of the woods yet. Towards the end of the chapter, we transition to the scene at Tokaji Port where Law's crew is with Luffy and everyone else, and Caribou even shows up just in time, and we see that he was storing a month's worth of food on him, and Luffy's just gobbling it all up trying to regain his strength so he can get back into the action. Law's crew has been completely in the dark on what's going on the island, so their priority at this point becomes figuring out what's going on with Law and Beppo, but they can barely hear what Luffy is saying through his chewing. But you can sort of make out that he's talking about Law being engaged in a battle with Big Mom and how he himself wants to get back into the fight with Kaido. The last part of the chapter has Shinobu and Momonosuke discussing a return to the island. And Shinobu obviously wants no parts of this anymore. She just wants to get out of there and not look back for Momo's sake. The whole thing with Kinemon and Kiku possibly losing their lives right in front of them probably has her spooked to the point that she feels this way. Momo, on the other hand, you can see some growth taking place in him. The chapter before, he was in tears and couldn't even focus on what was going on, but now he wants to do anything he can to help. So he urges Shinobu to turn him into an adult with her devil fruit ability. And this has been a popular theory for a while. People thought at some point Momo will become an adult this way to make up for the 20 lost years and be in the position to become a true shogun. A lot of people figure though that her ability only works on non-living things and that it just straight up rots things. But taking a closer look at how it's described, you can see that it's catered more towards the act of ripening anything that she touches and accelerating the aging process. So it's not just a rotting fruit. In a way, she's like half of Bonnie's fruit, with the contrast being that Bonnie can fast forward or reverse anyone's age as well as her own. Shinobu can simply just fast forward at whatever rate she chooses, and there's no going back. The benefit that Momo was looking for was to become a bigger dragon, and this was kind of foreshadowed a little bit as well. In chapter 1008, Momo talked about how he could be such a huge help if he turned into a monster like Kaido, because being a small dragon in his current form limited him a lot. In this same chapter, we saw Momo's abilities advance as well, like how he was able to tell what was happening on the roof. So he's progressively been growing in a few areas throughout the raid. I want to point out as well, we had something in Zou that may pertain to the current set of chapters. Back in Zou, Momo in his tearful plea to Luffy said that he wants to become an adult, to grow strong and protect his retainers. He may have not meant becoming an adult literally at the time, but still that could have been set up for this moment. And now where we're at, he may end up playing a vital role and won't just be the symbolic figurehead at the center of the raid. The most immediate contribution that comes to mind, of course, is the fact that as a bigger dragon, he might be able to stop the descent of Onigashima. We're not sure how much power he'll gain in this new form, but I think it can make sense that he does something important to help. I just don't think it will make any sense at all for him to join the fight against Kaido directly. Because, that would be kind of disrespectful to the Scabbers and the Supernova who had to work for all that power if he was just granted it with just a touch. Power and skill of that level isn't something you just gain with natural physical growth either. But still, with his new body, he should be able to gain just enough to make a change in some other ways. You know, another possibility is that he's finally able to wield Ame no Habakiri, and that sword is known as a Snake Slayer. So I can see a scenario in which he ends up being the one to kill Orochi. This would be pretty fitting given how desperately Orochi's been trying to take his life, and the true Shogun would bring an end to the reign of the false Shogun. In any case, I do think that the sword itself has to be highlighted at some point, like, even if Hiyori was the one to use it, that would be nice to see too. A lot of people have been pointing out the cover spread for chapter 310 too, and that's because in the background you see a pink dragon, and there's a lot of foreshadowing in this, of course, because we might get this larger dragon form of Momo soon. This isn't the first time this spread has been relevant either, because you see Luffy wearing some samurai armor and some gear that has a Kozuki crest on it, and this spread is from 17 years ago, and yet we see the same exact fit in chapter 959, and that's when people started to realize that it had a little bit of significance. And there's a few more things that seem to be noteworthy in this spread that I don't see anyone talking about, but I think I'll save that for another video. Maybe I'll go through some other color spreads that have hints and hidden plot points as well, because there's a lot of them I've noticed over the years. But that's the end of this review, and hopefully I find the time to do one for next chapter as well, because it was fun picking apart this chapter and getting into the details. If you want more videos like this, make sure to hit the subscribe button and like the video as well. Also turn on post notifications to keep up with all of my uploads.